Hey everyone, SalmonPink here. Hope you're all staying safe out there. And by out there, I mean in the safety of your own homes and not in some overcrowded mall where everyone's getting a little too close for comfort, if you catch my drift. Speaking of catching things, I need to come clean on why I haven't been uploading for the past little while. Life has been really tough for me lately, and looking back at all the build-up over the last couple of months, leading up to a single moment that for many would have broken them, I'm amazed I'm still sane. But truth be told, I did not get a PS5. I know you must be shocked, but honestly I can't justify dropping $600 on a new console right now, and another $200 on 2 new games. I work retail and I'm still paying off my student loan. I'll get the console when it drops in price, or when they do an upgraded version 2 years down the line or something. I can't just drop close to $1,000 on one of my hobbies because I feel like it. Hey, you get out of here. This video ain't for you. At least not for now. Full joking aside, your boy is okay and healthy. No flu, no virus, I'm all good. Anyways, for anyone who has watched my yearly games of videos in the past, you should already know what's coming up right before I talk about the games. Cue the transition. All the matter expressed in this video, my rankings of the games, and my game of the year are all my own opinions. You may not agree with any of them, and that's totally okay. That's why I make these videos year after year. I like sharing things I enjoy, but I'll never force them onto anyone since every person has the right to enjoy the games they like. It's why I'm a huge fan of rhythm games, but I could never get into RTS games. I don't believe one genre to be superior to the other, I just prefer one more than the other. And just before I start, I actually have a second disclaimer about this year's video. Roll the clip again! This isn't a content warning in the sense that it isn't safe for viewing outside of your home or that it contains graphic content. No. It's more so that it includes games that some wouldn't consider to be traditional video games, rather a genre where the name of said genre rhymes with my favorite type of finely ground green tea powder. The opinion disclaimer was like 20 seconds ago, let's keep an open mind, people. With that out of the way, for any opinions you do feel like discussing, let's chat in the comments below, or let me know on Twitter at @TheSalmonPink. Now, barring any further delays, let's begin. Here to start off this year's list is a devilishly charming game that came out back in May. Helltaker is a short game about sharply dressed demon girls. I'm not even kidding, that's the entire description right off the game's Steam page. And yes, it is quite short. You can complete the game in a shorter time than it takes to watch this entire video. I kid you not. Why did this game even make it onto my list then? Simple. It is as I introduced it. The game is devilishly charming. The story is simple enough. You wake up one day wanting to have a harem of demon girls, so you make your way through several chambers in hell to charm all of the demon girls waiting for you there. Gameplay is as simple as it gets, but it's very fun. You solve each room within a certain number of moves, and then have a short chat with the girl of the room to try and win her over. Rinse and repeat for all the other girls, and the game even has a really neat final boss too. The portrait art for all the characters is really great, and the game's chibi art style pops out wonderfully. The game also has a killer soundtrack done by Mitzi's that it perfectly accompanies the feel of it. And while the game may be short, there are still a handful of secrets to be unlocked as well. On top of that, the game is completely free. I promise that every minute in Helltaker will be worth your while. It certainly was for me. Up next on my list is a game I don't see nearly enough people talking about. Sakuna of Rice and Ruin is a story about the game's titular character, a divine princess sentenced to an island of demons with a ragtag group of mortal companions to clear it of all threats. However, in order to survive, she has to grow her own food and fight off the demons at her new doorstep. And how will she do that, you ask? The answer is simple: with rice. What really separates Sakuna from other games where you harvest crops and improve a town is two key features: The first is that everyone you arrive to the island with is everyone you'll be living with, showing that through the good and the bad, you'll learn to grow with your sometimes ridiculous new family. And the second is that it has a core feedback loop of gameplay where the rice you grow will make you stronger when you go out adventuring and demon slaying, which will let you find more and better materials to help grow your rice in fields. And while growing rice is neat, it's the 2D action platforming sections where the game truly stands out. The combat is fast-paced and incredibly versatile. You can use light and heavy weapon attacks in conjunction with various skills. Being a divine princess, you still have your raiment that you can use both for movement around the maps, as well as to swing yourself or demons around in combat. It is honestly really fun to mix and match your own combos and explore each of the areas of the island. I may be far from completing Sakuna, but it has become one of my favorite games to play when I get home from work to relax, explore, and grow some rice. Next, I want to tell you about a stealth game that is hauntingly beautiful. A game that cuts back on traditional aspects of games like UI, health bars, and waypoints, and instead has you rely on sights, sounds, and instincts. This game is none other than Ghost of Tsushima. As you explore and take in your surroundings, you'll have to rely on the wind and nature to guide you. See a fox running into a patch of grass? Try to follow it to see where it leads you. Trying to infiltrate a camp of Mongols to try and find someone they've kept captive? You better sneak your way in and out without drawing too much attention, because you don't have many ways to fight an army. Come face to face with someone who wants your head and will duel to the death? You'll need to wait for just the right moment to attack them, or they might just be walking away with your lifeless corpse. Ghost of Tsushima is really a breath of fresh air for the stealth genre of games, as it draws you in and forces you to make quick decisions both in movement and in combat. I, for one, am just utterly impressed with how much this game does and what it represents for the future generations of stealth games. If there's one thing I can't get enough of, it's a good roguelike. Between Enter the Gungeon and Slay the Spire, I definitely have my fill, but this year gave us yet another giant that will stand strong beside those two, and that game is Hades. Much like a previous entry on this list, Hades has you fighting your way through the underworld, and has captured mine and many others' interest with its quick and flashy combat, its comic book-esque art style, and the different strategies you can employ and build up each time you play. And what's better, the game is packed full with Greek mythos and is fully voiced as well. The greater narrative is tied into the game both for its story and for its gameplay. Since you play as Zagreus, the Prince of the Underworld, you are technically immortal, so dying on your run, while it resets the run itself, just returns you home. Although you will have to start another run, as is the nature of roguelikes. You do have some pseudo-permanent progression though, and can unlock various boons and upgrades that will help you on future runs. So with each failed attempt, you can both hone in on your skill and have a quality of gameplay improvement as well. If you're looking for a game that you can enjoy in short bursts or in long binges, Hades is sure to keep you entertained and make sure you're having a good time at it at that. Before I talk about the next game, I need to clarify something. In my 4 years doing these videos, this is the very first game that I have struggled to finish due to my own concern for my health. The reason why is that this game has gone as far as causing me high levels of stress, immense amounts of anxiety, shortness of breath, several panic attacks, sweating, shaking, loss of sleep, and other forms of malaise. Like I mentioned earlier in this video, I am all good and healthy, but this game has literally brought me to another level of distress through immersion. And what game, you might be asking yourself, could have possibly caused all these plights while playing it? Well, allow me to share this with you. Amnesia Rebirth, the long-awaited yet least expected game of 2020. While I may have been terrified through every moment of it, I was no coward. In fact, I finished the game the night before I started recording this audio. That being said, let me tell you why this game is so amazing and why I continue to play it despite all my terror. The first screen you see upon loading up the game for the first time tells you an important fact before you even hit the new game button. This game should not be played to win. Immerse yourself in the world and the story. Fear and darkness are your enemies. That's exactly what I did. I put myself in Tazi Trianon's shoes as she struggled to escape the Algerian desert and the horrors that she found there. And I only did so in the dark of night with all the lights and my phone turned off, my noise-canceling headphones in, and not a single distraction available. There were times where sweat would bead on my forehead, or times when my breathing was labored, or felt my heart pounding to try and escape from my chest. As with each area explored, I shared Tazi's dread of having to progress further, only knowing that it would eventually lead to something even more terrifying than before. The game excels in this aspect, as a lot of the tension is created with its gruesome and horrific environments, as well as the outstanding audio design. What's better is that these two factors play off of each other very well, as just the thought of what nightmarish things may lurk around each corner is enough to force players to muster up all the courage they can, only for it to be shattered by their worst fears. I'm going to keep what I say about the story to a minimum, as it is very important to the experience of the game. Rebirth is a direct prequel to The Dark Descent, and gives the player a perfect drip feed of lore and world building for any fans of the game. For anyone who hasn't played The Dark Descent, the story is still self-sufficient, original, and packed to the brim with secrets to discover. Heck, everything down to dying in the game is tied to the story. Gonna let you figure that one out for when you play it. Amnesia Rebirth is a fantastic return to the beloved series, and a welcome one at that. It is incredibly satisfying to play and offers a survival horror experience that should not be overlooked by fans of the series or genre. As far as finishing the game is concerned, you may be more courageous than I am, or maybe I'm just a little bitch. So, we're halfway through my list. What do you think so far? I'm really happy that I have a great variety of games in the first half that I can play either in short bursts or long sessions. For a year as hectic as this one, I definitely needed some good stories and lore to dive into to get my mind off of things. But before I move on to the next game, I'd like to introduce a new section of the video where I give some attention to games that, while playable, are still in beta or unreleased in full, but I'm still really enjoying and can't wait to see more of. Let's get right into it. First up is a game that was first shown off 3 years ago, and I actually backed it on Kickstarter because this game stole my heart on sight. Re-Legend is a monster-raising focused JRPG with a variety of features such as farming, fishing, crafting, village building, battles, and more. What's better is that the game will support full multiplayer, so when it drops you'll be able to tame monsters and explore with friends. It has a colorful, cel-shaded chibi art style that just pops out, and I absolutely cannot wait for the full release. Next, a game set in a gorgeous fantasy world on the brink of war and destruction. Edge of Eternity is an exciting RPG with a twist on its tactical turn-based combat. As you explore and encounter battles, your position in relation to your environment can offer different strategies or possibilities for combat. Currently, the game has 6 chapters and each of them features wildly extravagant locales to explore. Let's take a walk on the spooky side. Japan, 1984, a seaside town on the brink of madness. The old gods are reawakening, and it's up to you to uncover the truth and stop the encroaching apocalypse. World of Horror is the perfect love letter to Junji Ito, H.P. Lovecraft, and the entire genre of cosmic horror, as it has an incredibly fitting 1-bit art style, terrifying chiptune music, and a myriad of mysteries for your mind to meander. With multiple gods, characters, curses, and cases to solve, this game could possibly be my game of the year for how frightening and genius it is. Keep an eye out for this one. Alright, you know I need my fix of Metroidvanias, and Record of Lotus War, Deedlit and Wonder Labyrinth scratches that itch oh so well. And as luck would have it, the game is not at all as convoluted as its title. With the clean and detailed pixel art, combat and movement reminiscent of a certain Symphony of the Night, and truly exciting levels and music, this game has got some serious potential. One of my favorite things is that you swap between two elemental familiars that interact with battles, puzzles, and the movement differently, so it encourages the player to figure out the best strategy for the situation. Right now, the game only has 2 stages that you can get through in about an hour and a half, but the 3rd and 4th stages are set for release in January, and I could not be more excited to play them. I hope you can check out some of those games. I really do think they carry a lot of potential and are a ton of fun even right now. But let's get back to the main attraction, because these next games are serious business. Speaking of serious business, my next game isn't at all afraid to take care of it. Imagine building an entire series on the legacy of a core concept. Then, when teasing the next entry, you completely shake up the formula as an April Fool's joke, only to have the fans' response to said joke be so overwhelmingly in support of the change that you rework the entire game to build off of the joke, and have it be successful doing so. This is the game that isn't afraid to be a game. Yakuza, Like a Dragon. Now, I may be pretty new to the Yakuza series as a whole, but having played through all of Zero myself, as well as watching a friend play through the bulk of Kiwami 1 and 2, I'm familiar enough to call myself a fan of the series. But wow, was I not expecting for Yakuza 7 to drop the bomb and give us a fully formal RPG. Everything from the character classes, weapons, skills, and even summons to boot. But the best part is that everything fans have come to expect from the series is ever present in the game, but with even more to be excited about. Looking for a serious and severe main story that isn't afraid to touch on the more sensitive topics? Got you covered. How about some of the more lighthearted side stories to get your mind off of everything? Done. Mahjong, shogi, and gambling minigames? To your heart's desire. And how about something new and fresh, like dragon karting, where you comically race through the streets of Ijincho, or trying to stay awake at the movie theater while rams try to put you asleep? Oh yeah, it's here. No matter what you're looking for in a game, Yakuza Like a Dragon has something for everyone and bravely wears its legacy on its heart. Don't sleep on it, or those rams will get you. This is a story about death and coffee. Enter Necrobarista, a visual novel seeking to tell you about hipster coffee culture, necromancy, and the process of letting go. And much like the title suggests, there was not a single minute that I did not have a coffee by my side while playing through this. Necrobarista caught me by surprise, as how I went going into the game and how I felt after playing were 2 completely distinct and different emotional states. I went in expecting a comfy visual novel about coffee and nerdy things, and I came out in a somber melancholy, reflecting on the briefness that is human life. The game tackles a number of very heavy subjects, and is not afraid of digging deep into the sensitive emotional topics as well. But while the character writing is incredibly witty and quite self-aware at some points, the entire purpose of it is always clear: learning to cope with the things that are outside of our control. I know I may have been a bit vague here, but the best part of this game is what it imparts to you. The experience and the environment is just as important too. I'd even recommend waiting for a good rainy day to play this on. There are times when the game is funny, but others where it is downright depressing. And much like a good cup of coffee, it can be bitter and tough to swallow. But there's still warmth and comfort behind it. So why not pour yourself a cup and give it a try? Let's brighten the mood a little, shall we? In fact, I think it's safe to say that this next game was a breath of fresh air for not just myself, but so many others around the world. Animal Crossing: New Horizons, the latest title in the series, and also my very first Animal Crossing game. Where do I even start with this one? I have to say, some of my most relaxing mornings this year have started off with two things: a cup of freshly brewed coffee and Animal Crossing. The game starts off a little slow, but to quote one of my coworkers, it gives you the perfect trail of breadcrumbs to follow. They're not wrong either. As you develop your island, more things will be unlocked for you to do and collect. There have even been numerous updates to the game, adding a ton of seasonal content, new collectibles, events, and tons of other things. But I haven't even told you about my favorite part of the game. The reason I love New Horizons so much is that it gives everyone a new start to build and create as they please. I personally loved seeing the different ways my friends and everyone were building their islands. That in turn inspired me to do even more on my own island. Although I'll have to admit, what you're seeing now is my island after a couple months of neglect. That being said, I absolutely love all of my decorations and how my island turned out. I'll even jump back into the game every now and then just to see what's happening. Animal Crossing New Horizons is not only a perfect getaway on an island of your own, but a great escape from the troubles of our own world. There were times this year when the stress from my work was really getting to me, but it would all seemingly drift away, as would I when I'd come home and jump onto my island. Each player on their island in Animal Crossing is telling their own story, day by day. It's a great place to hang out and a comfortable way to express yourself. And while I may be less active on it now, every minute I played was a minute well spent. Even if you haven't jumped in yet, there's never a bad time to take some time for yourself and enjoy a tropical island getaway. Here it is, the game that nearly took it all for me. The one long awaited by myself and many others, and the one that has taken the world by storm. You could even say it made an impact on all of us. Yep, get ready, because I'm talking about Genshin Impact. And here's where that trigger warning from earlier comes in. While yes, the game exists to make money as a gacha, there is something more that I've gotten out of it. Genshin is a rich and expansive world that has so many secrets to uncover, and it's just the game I've been waiting for. And do you know how much it costs to play the game? Not a single dollar. Allow me to briefly share my downs and ups with you on my journey with this game. First, I'm going to tackle the dreaded R word. Resin. Is it a good system? No. But it functions like any other stamina system in pretty much any other gacha. Can it be reworked? Absolutely. And even having the cap raised from 120 to 160 in patch 1.1 is huge. If MiHoYo can balance the system where resin regenerates slightly faster or have the cost for its uses reduced, it would be much more accessible for players. Second, while the game is free, it is not nearly F2P friendly enough for the long run. Sure, the beginner banner that guarantees a copy of Noelle on your first temple and another 4-star character on your second temple is great, but the rate at which you are awarded Primo Gems, the game's premium currency that you use to summon new characters and weapons, is not at all sustainable. The game needs a consistent login bonus or has to improve on the number of gems it gives for achievements and discoveries, because when you need 160 gems for a single summon, and you get an average of about 80 per day between daily commissions, exploration, and other achievements, that is not nearly enough to keep up with all of the game's updates. I could go on, but the reason I'm so passionate about this is because of how good the positives are. Every single character that you can play is incredibly lovable and charming in their own respect. They each have their own likes, dislikes, preferences, and they show it through their bonds and in their stories. Some of my personal favorites are Keqing, Noelle, Diluc, Kaya, Beidou, Tartaglia, and Zhongli. That doesn't even include upcoming characters like Ganyu, Scaramouche, Zhao, Dainsleif, or Ayaka either. As I'm writing and recording this long before the 1.2 update, I'm not sure if Albedo or Ganyu will be released first in the new banner, but if it happens to be Ganyu by the time this video releases, please pray that my favorite Coco Goat can come home. That being said, The world and story are as colorful as the cast of characters that inhabit it. At first it may feel like an anime Skyrim, as I've seen it being called, but it has a fun fantasy-filled world filled with its own mythos on gods, magic, and so much more. The story and sub-stories are really focused on world building and character development, as we only have the first 2 of the 7 playable regions available currently. It only makes me more excited for future updates. But what ties it all together is the smooth and snappy gameplay paired with the fully orchestrated soundtrack. Each character has their own style of combat, and the game actively encourages you to mix and match the elements and characters which best suit your needs, or more importantly, to enjoy playing who you like. With the exception of the late endgame content, the game isn't too difficult, so explore to your heart's content. And oh wow, that battle theme for Liyue? Perfection. Genshin Impact is a game I foresee myself playing for the next couple of years, and it is getting better and better with each new update. While the game still has a lot of improvements to make, I am still very excited for version 1.2 and everything else that is coming after that. Here's to one of my new favorites. Woo! Still with me? We're almost there. But just before I announce my game of the year, let me run through a couple titles that just barely didn't make the list this year. Ori and the Will of the Wisps. I've had to resist watching speedruns for this one to avoid spoilers, but the new Ori is just as thrilling and heart-wrenching as the original, if not more. Half-Life Alyx. While I've never been that interested in the Half-Life series, Alyx was the first game to truly catch my attention. This, along with Tetris Effect and Beat Saber, are just becoming all the more reasons to get a VR headset. 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim. This Vanillaware title really piqued my interest after I got an ad for it that I just couldn't bring myself to skip. It has a cute 2D art style for the adventure and story segments, and a neat 3D wireframe style for its tactical strategy battles. Really love this one, and I can't wait to play more of it. Phantasy Star Online 2. Congrats are in order just for this game to have finally released, but thanks to my near-crippling addiction to Genshin, I don't have nearly enough time to dedicate myself to it. One day maybe, so long as I don't fall down the Final Fantasy XIV rabbit hole, which is also likely. Bloodstain, Curse of the Moon 2. This comes as a surprise even to me, as everything I've seen for this I've enjoyed, but just haven't gotten around to playing it really. Just more of what I've loved from the first one. Doom Eternal. Another game that I'm doomed to never beat because I suck at shooters. Damn, it looks wild though, and I've heard nothing but glowing praise from everyone I know who's played it. Trials of Mana. As my first entry into the Mana series, it was pretty neat. Although despite being a full remake of the 1995 game of the same title, it still had that classic RPG charm that I've come to love. The story is even a little different depending on which characters you choose for the main party, even changing up the bosses and endings you can get, which is pretty neat. My one gripe is that the game did feel a little sluggish at times, but it's not nearly as bad as I made it out to be. Grand Blue Fantasy Versus. Now this is a fighting game I can sink my teeth into. Catch my Lancelot and Zeta as I drop all my combos. This game definitely got overshadowed this year, as it was not advertised at all. Even worse was that it was going to be a featured game at EVO this year, but we all know how that turned out. More of you should definitely be playing it. That and my boy Albert needs to be put in as a playable character. Spider-Man, Miles Morales. The first of 2 games that I sadly won't have access to. But if anyone remembers how much I praised Spider-Man 2018, take that and crank it up to 100 for my boy Miles. This game looks so clean. Demon's Souls. I am ready to die again, FromSoft. Just wait till I have my hands on a PS5, then I'll bite. Although, seeing Demon's Souls being relevant in 2020 is truly a grand feeling. Monster Hunter World, Iceborne, PC. Here's my small mention of Iceborne on PC. I ended up loving it, despite the Clutch Claw being a complete disaster. As of recording, I've sunk 760 hours into it, and counting, as I patiently wait for March 26th, 2021. And with that, my friends, let us proceed to the star of this year's show. It wasn't an easy decision. It never is. But it's one I stand behind wholeheartedly, and more so than ever before. The final game on this year's list, and the one that above all others sits as the crown of what we should come to expect in terms for a quality remake. If it wasn't obvious by this point, then my love of RPGs clearly isn't showing enough. For this, my game of the year for 2020 is Final Fantasy VII Remake. It doesn't get any better than this, especially for a game that has been consistently refined over the course of so many years like this one has. And despite the source material being 23 years old at the time this game came out, its themes and story are still just as relevant today as they were when the original was released. However, I wouldn't name this my game of the year on merit or nostalgia alone. Let's take a deeper dive. To begin, while the game covers the story of the original title, it has taken the opportunity to add more flair and flavor through new areas, bosses, story segments, and gameplay mechanics. While adding on to the game, this also helps flesh out the world of Midgar even further without harming the integrity of what was built upon it before. While it is already well known that the remake doesn't cover the entire plot of the original, it does set a precedent that the subsequent entry or entries will allow for even more development of the world and characters that we've grown to love and adore. That leads me to my next point. All the extra dialogue, animations, and character interactions gave us a much more complex view of the characters and their motives. In the earlier days of the original game, An Advent Children, Cloud was a great character who is somewhat of a player's self-insert protagonist. Now, he's still all that, but the animators of the remake took the extra attention to show his reluctance to help out, in contrast with a much more subtle care and concern he has for his companions. I think that settles Cloud as gaming's number one tsundere. But let me ramble a bit about the gameplay. It's lightning quick, yet smooth and ultra flashy. Very reminiscent of 2016's Final Fantasy XV, which was my game of the year for said year despite me not making a video about it. Maybe on a rainy day in the future. That being said, my love for 15 definitely contributes to why I absolutely love the combat in 7's remake, and how you still have a battle menu where you can cast spells and use items, limit breaks, in a slow time sequence. The game still keeps a turn-based feel like this, as you and your opponents are constantly firing off waves of attacks and trying to build up to your strongest attacks through the ATB gauge. All of the new and returning bosses each have fantastic battle sequences, gorgeous cinematics, and picturesque finishers. It really is just a treat to experience. I could go on even more, but I just want to give a short praise to the composers for this game as well. Of course, credit to Nobuo Uematsu for the game's original music and all his contributions to not only the remake, but all of Final Fantasy's history as well. Also, Masashi Hamauzu and Mitsuo Suzuki both contributed to a ton of the compositions and tracks in the remake. All of the arrangements and mixes on the music in-game and in cutscenes are just perfect, and even just thinking about all of these fantastic tracks puts shivers down my spine. But there comes a point where words just aren't enough. I love this game, and that's what this ultimately comes down to. I just hope that Best Doggo Red 13 is playable in the next entry. Don't let me down, Square. And make sure we keep a lot of the fun minigames like darts and squat challenges. Okay, I'm done. I'll stop. Now, who would have thought having opinions on the internet could be so controversial? I think I'm gonna take a nice long nap now that this is all done. And probably play some more Mustache too. I've been playing a lot of that recently. Heck, 2021 is starting to look pretty stacked already. I wonder how I'll even be able to keep up with all of those games. But I'm sure you'll find out same time next year. That being said, I want to extend my biggest thanks to all of you, my dearest viewers, for taking the time out of your day to listen to this nerdy fish ramble on about games for this long. I won't tell you to smash that like button, or to hit the subscribe button and the bell notification. Just lending your ear to hear my thoughts is more than enough. Until the new year, my friends, I wish you all a safe, socially distanced, and fun holiday season with tons of good games to play. This is the Salmon Pink signing off, and have yourselves a damn good one.